Welcome everyone to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here for this weekly astrology report. We're looking at the third quarter of this lunar cycle. We just came off the lunar eclipse with the moon in Gemini, and we're going to be looking at the astrology for the 2nd of December up until the 7th of December, which is the third quarter square. So we're just coming off of the lunar eclipse. It was gnarly. The whole week leading up to it was gnarly. There were so many reports and my own personal experience, just so much physical discomfort, sleep disruptions, feeling sick. I mean, the purging and the detoxing that preceded this eclipse has been substantial. And now that we're on the other side of it, the symptoms are starting to, at least for some of us, the symptoms are starting to dissipate a little bit. Somebody brought up to me today that Jason Estes had talked about spiritual whiplash, and wow, does that really feel like an accurate description? There has been a major shift, a huge shift. And part of that is because Neptune in Pisces stationed direct just before this lunar eclipse. Neptune in Pisces in its home sign is now moving direct. There was a shifting of the magnetic poles of this planet so drastically that whiplash is one of the best ways that I could also think about what's been happening. So I hope you're doing well. If you've been really struggling, just know that things are starting to resolve. We are on the other side of the eclipse. Now, these eclipses reverberate out for months because we are not getting a full illumination of the moon in a lunar eclipse. We are not seeing the fullness of the sun in the upcoming solar eclipse, which will be a total solar eclipse. The path of totality is going to move through South America, Chile, and Argentina. I'll talk about that when I do a report. So what is often illuminated in a full moon, right? What is often illuminated in terms of our subconscious, our feelings, what is underneath the surface a lot of the times, we didn't get a full look at it. The shadow of the earth was cast onto the moon, and so it is shadowed. It wasn't fully realized unless we actually knew that coming into it and were willing to work with that energy. Okay, so the symptoms are starting to dissipate. By the time we get past this third quarter square on the 7th and move into the 8th, I suspect that there will be some relief as we move into the last quarter, preparing ourselves not only for the solar eclipse that's on the 14th, we have Chiron stationing direct on the 15th, and then we have the winter solstice, which is the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn at 0 degrees Aquarius. So there's still a lot coming, but the preparation leading up to this full moon lunar eclipse was substantial. And many people, including myself, were feeling it on a very physical level. So we're going to look at these transits this week. They're beautiful. I'm just going to be real. They're beautiful. We have a grand water trine with Venus in Scorpio, a direct Neptune in Pisces, and the moon in Cancer. From there, we're going to have a grand fire trine with Chiron, Mercury, and the moon in Leo. And so it's going to be intensely emotional here in the first day or so, and then move into an incredible activation period with this fire trine. There's going to be a lot of quincunxes, meaning there's going to be lots of opportunities for adjustment. And there will be definitely some level of emotional eruption that comes with this third quarter square. But if we can identify and really lean into that square and how uncomfortable that is, we will see a collective desire to fulfill ourselves and express ourselves, not through the eruption that we're going to be feeling emotionally, but the fulfillment comes through the opportunity for rebirth at that moment. And this is a struggle, right? But it can't be any worse than what we just went through. I feel like that was very significant. I know for me personally, it was a week of just pain, headaches, feeling sick, all kinds of weird symptoms, not being able to sleep. And as we got closer and closer and closer to the eclipse, especially once Neptune went direct, I mean, sleep was impossible. Dreams were astral travel. It was so intense. So just know that it is starting to dissipate a little bit, and that our symptoms are going to, we're going to get some relief. But in the meantime, let's talk about what to expect as we're going through this week. Okay, so this is for the second. The moon will be moving into her home sign of Cancer, and it's, we transition from the mind to the feelings, from Gemini to Cancer. And with the mind and Gemini, we're considering all the options, right? We are playing with all of the ideas. We are integrating as much as we can in the realm of the mind, communication, information, and we come to a point and we make a decision. We root ourselves, okay? So we've considered the options and we come to this decision point, right? We place our roots down. This is the nadir. This is the bottom of the chart, the fourth house cusp, right? This is the root system. We plant ourselves, and the fourth house in Cancer is the home. It is tribal relationships. It's where we belong, where we feel emotionally safe and secure. And so despite the full moon being a lunar eclipse, the collective value of helping others along their evolution, which is where the sun was in Sagittarius, within our culture, has shined a light onto the potential of our intellect to pierce through the veil, okay? That is the real power of Gemini. When we look at ourselves in the mirror, when we look at what appears to be opposition, the real sharpness of our intellect can pierce through the mirror to the other side, and shattering our ego along the way. But it's really about transcending the ego in order to see ourselves in what appears to be opposite. And we really are working with this Gemini energy for the next year plus, with the North Node being in Gemini. So this is something that's not going away. And the fact that the eclipses are on the, happening, it's very karmic what is happening with these eclipses. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. The eclipse has made it really difficult. Obviously, I've said that like 100 times. We have our quiver filled with arrows, right? But are we able to hit the bullseye and pierce through the target, pierce through our ego to the other side of what is essentially us just looking back at ourselves? Only time is really going to tell, because the impact is going to ripple through time. Okay, that's how these eclipses work. So there's likely going to be a karmic adjustment here when the moon is in Cancer, and in our feelings and our emotions when she is trying to asteroid Ceres. So asteroid Ceres is the goddess of the grain and agriculture, and she's in Pisces, and she's giving her sustenance is coming with this sanctity to it, this ritualization to it. She's giving of herself fully, and even the most mundane act of providing sustenance can be viewed as a sacred act when everything is sacred in Pisces. And I think these acts will move us to make these karmic adjustments that we're going to have with the moon in Cancer within our families and the places that we feel like we belong, into these familial bonds in the places we call home, even if that is within us. Okay. I mean, it's likely going to be about where we feel at home, who our familial bonds are with, but this could also be about our own personal power within. So there's going to be a square to Chiron, as you see here. And this is really going to provide a challenge to this continued assertion of our own wounding of self, okay? Chiron in Aries. And because we're going to start to realize that our emotional energy is way more beneficial and useful when it comes to gathering the materials and feathering our own nests, okay? And preparing for something new that is being brought forward, okay? This is the square, right? The square is one direction and this direction. They meet here and they, can come into this T-bone, right? There's no resolving this. You have to just feel into it. And this is where we learn some of the most important things from these squares. And then the moon, as you can see, is going to be in a sextile to Uranus, which is still retrograde in Taurus. And anytime Uranus is involved, it's best to expect a disruptive and rapid shift in perspective because of what? A flash of insight, a flash of lightning. And if you watch the live today, that's a big part of what's going on in our conscious awareness right now. We may be experiencing a split in ourselves, or a split with somebody, or a split with some entity as a result of this lightning, okay? And in this case, we can ride the waves of this shift in perspective, specifically by using past knowledge to meet the demands of a stage yet to come. The thing is that even though the flash of lightning isn't necessarily something that we can predict, you can look at the puddles of water and you're like, this has been happening. This storm has been happening. So in that way, we can kind of anticipate that something is going to happen because the storm has been brewing. It's actually been happening. We can see actual evidence of it. And we can be, and being willing to engage on some level of emotional imitation, right? That's how we learn things. We imitate emotionally at first as a precursor to our actual emotional growth. So the sextile here, right? This is a harmonious connection, but we have to activate it. We have to participate in it in some way. And when we're talking about the moon in Cancer, we are learning how to be good family members, we're learning how to, you know, create these bonds in our family. This is, and that's very third house into the fourth house. Third house is where we learn about the world around us and how to make sense of it. When we come into the fourth house, this is about the actual familial bonds and the emotional relationships we have with the people closest to us. And it's where we get our personal power. So another thing that's happening today is important. You're not going to see it on here, but Pallas Athena, the goddess of war and strategy, she is conjunct with Saturn today on the second, okay? 29 degrees of Capricorn. This is a woman reading the tea leaves, the writing on the wall. Saturn is here. Saturn is the writing on the wall, okay? It is the ability to be clairvoyant. It is the ability to see what is with our abilities to look a little bit deeper into what is right there. Now, Pallas is reading the writing on the wall, and she's going to use that as part of her strategy in battle. So just keep that in mind for today, okay? Pallas is reading the writing on the wall. Saturn is the writing on the wall, right? What is? She's looking into it and seeing it, and she's going to use that in strategy for battle. So just something to keep in mind in the back of your head. Venus is in Scorpio. This is going to be part of this water trine as we move through the week. We are feeling an intense yearning and desire to really merge with others in our relationship. Okay, Scorpio is about the collective power dynamic between in a committed relationship, in a partnership, a business relationship, a marriage, whatever it means to you. And Venus is about what we love, right? So we want these. The yearning is getting stronger in our relationships and our projects and the material world around us to have a deeper, more meaningful relationship there and a depth of feeling. So Venus is going to sextile asteroid Vesta, who's in Virgo. Again, you're not going to see it on this chart. Vesta actually is the goddess of the Vestal virgins and the hearth, okay? So we can establish new emotional and communicative connections, Venus and Scorpio, in our relationships by relying on the strength of our root system. So Cancer is the root system. Virgo is the process of the roots, bringing the nutrients up and giving them to the plant in order to support the plant growing the fruit. And what is the fruit? It's holding the seed of the next cycle, okay? Vesta rules Virgo, and she rules the hearth flame, which is the center of family and community. So right there, you're going to see that in this sextile here, if we want to establish new connections, right, with the people we love and the relationships we have, and we want to make those connections stronger, maybe we need to reestablish them, maybe we need to strengthen them, maybe we need to repair them. Vesta is showing us that it's our root system that needs to be strong in order to then bring bring the nutrients up from the soil, bring what is needed for the health of the family and the community up and into us as people. And so, focusing on Hestia, focusing on Vesta. She is the goddess of the flame and the hearth. The hearth is the center of the family. Again, this is all coming back to familial bonds and family and nurturing those relationships and nurturing that place within ourselves. It doesn't have to be a literal aspect, but considering the fact that we really do need to find a way to start coming together and nurturing these relationships, we do have to maintain the fire that is the center of all of everything. And our root system needs to be strong if we want to actually use them to bring the nutrients up from the soil into the plant, which is us, or the community of plants. Okay. So, and this is about communication. Communication absolutely needs to be reestablished. We need to build new connections in communication, but that means, again, that our roots have to be strong. Okay. So when we come into the third, right? So let's look at that. Here we go. There we go. So we're coming into the third, and you see right here, Neptune, Venus, the moon. Here's this water trine. We also have Black Moon Lilith involved here with the moon, with Neptune. And then, of course, the moon and Neptune are in an exact trine today. So pure feeling is going to be amplified today with all of this water energy. It's going to be beautiful, right? It's going to be just going to be very beautiful and very watery and very fluid. Okay. We have Cancer moon, Venus in Scorpio, and Neptune in Pisces. By the time this trine has taken place, the moon will have moved to a position from decision to consolidation. That's the last half of Cancer. Consolidating our power after the experience of adjusting to where we have emotionally rooted ourselves. Familial and tribal bonds are going to be close to our personal emotions with the moon. Okay. Venus in Scorpio has us yearning for a deeper experience of sharing in our relationships. Now with Neptune moving direct now in Pisces, the potential to experience compassion, unconditional love, and merging into another in full empathic experience is going to be really strong. Emotions are going to run very high on this day, and it's going to be a really beautiful healing opportunity, okay? When it comes to our familial bonds and the people that we feel closest to and safest with, and where we get, again, our personal power. That is Cancer. Now, the moon is going to, on the 4th, the moon is going to move into Leo. So we move on to the 4th, but not before she opposes Pluto and Saturn and Pallas Athena and Jupiter, all in Capricorn, as you see here. It's going to be in this opposition as well. We have consolidated our power based on our familial bonds, our tribal bonds, where we belong, and our own personal power. And it's going to be essential that we find the fulcrum here, the balance point, because we don't want to be totally pulled in so much that we can't engage with what is happening in the world around us, which is Capricorn. And because that's the matrix of our reality. So finding the balance here, there is something to be said for everything that's happening over here. We don't want to be totally so closed in that we are ignoring reality over here. So balance point on the 4th, really important, okay? We don't want to get pulled, and we also don't want to be so pulled into what's happening outside of us that we are not emotionally consolidated into our own personal power and our character, who we are. Because when the moon moves into Leo, then we're going to have a grand fire trine with Mercury and Chiron. And this is the degree that Chiron is going to move direct the day after the eclipse. Okay, so let's see if we can move forward here and show you directly this fire trine, because it's pretty remarkable. There it is. All right, so Mercury is now in Sagittarius, not in its power. It's in its detriment in Sagittarius because it's in its opposite sign of its home, which is Gemini, okay? But this particular degree that this is all in this trine, there is, okay, first we're going to talk about, so Chiron is in a self-transcending position. This is incredible, okay? Again, so we had this water trine that's incredibly healing on emotional level. Now this is gonna be a moment of consolidation of our willpower. Wow, it's pretty remarkable. Chiron is retrograde, but it's in its self-transcending position here at this degree, 5 degrees, 5 degrees, 5 degrees. Mercury is the wise old owl, 5 degrees, and the moon in Leo is representing the rock formations towering over a deep canyon, right? It's very impersonal when it comes to Leo, right? Leo's all about us. It is our ego. It is about an individual consciousness and expression. So this degree is kind of, it's, despite the fact that these fire signs are all about action and spiritual will, this position is very structurally sound, it's very poised, and it's very powerful, especially in how we feel, because we have the moon involved. And what we think with Mercury, and our identification with our victimhood, which is Chiron, okay? This is such a potential moment for healing through this transformative process, just like we started with the new moon in Scorpio, the transformation, the phoenix rising. Well, this is going to be that moment, okay, of the phoenix, the burning moment that will allow for the phoenix to rise. And where are we going to rise out of? Our victimhood, our identification as a victim, okay? And looking beyond tragedy with wisdom in what we think and the information that we identify with and that we engage with, Mercury, the mind, and how we feel. How we feel is going to be something much more structurally sound and old than just the usual Leo stuff. This is a really incredible moment. So this is on the 4th. So we move on to the 5th. All right, here. I'm trying to keep you from having to look at their annoying ads. All right, here we go. Here we go on the 5th. So Venus comes into the exact trine with Neptune, as you see here. And it's in the same position that the Sun and Mercury both trine Neptune. But the difference now is that Neptune is direct and not retrograde, okay? So this superhuman realization, 19 degrees Scorpio, the ability to channel when we calm the mind enough to really bring it through, it's going to be brought into material form, okay? With Mercury, it was the mind, and it was like we were getting an idea of it, but Neptune was not direct yet. Now Neptune is direct. It's going to come right through, and we are going to be a vessel in our relationships, the physical reality around us. It's going to be materialized. What this realization, right? This deeper realization than just us. It's going to be brought into material form, into our relationships, into what and who we love. And the challenge to all of this is that the moon is then going to also square Venus at the same time. And we kind of emotionally are going to want to kick back and like get some kind of respite from this and just kind of party. And that's going to be really hard, because as much as we each individually want to do that within the context of the world around us, like our relationships and what we value, it's going to be pulling through this message, this transmission. It's going to be really, really strong. And so we're going to feel like, I don't want to deal with this right now. I want to just party. And again, just lean into the square, because there's stuff to learn there. On the 6th, we're going to have quincunxes all day long, all day long. It's hard to see in the chart, but you can see all the green here, quincunxes, 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 okay? This is wrapping up the end of this 3rd quarter. So it's appropriate, I think, that we have all of these opportunities for adjustment with how we feel, and the need to personally express ourselves and the reality of our world, okay? The moon in late Leo is going to quincunx all of this stuff in Capricorn. So Venus is also going to quincunx Mars, as you can see here. So you have the divine feminine, divine masculine aspect, and they're both in positions of passion and yearning and intensity and wanting things. And so again, we're going to have to adjust ourselves, because she's all about the relationship and Mars is all about himself. Okay, so we have to adjust ourselves in this situation. Also, Mercury in Sagittarius is going to quincunx Uranus in Taurus. In our minds, there's going to be new elements forming under the surface, right? It's kind of like in the core of the earth. It's so hot, right? The alchemical fire is actually creating new elements in our minds, new ideas, understandings, right? New belief systems. It's going to be brewing under the surface. The quincunx here is that Uranus is going to be like, that's great, but I keep shifting things around in your physical reality so that you learn how to trust the cycles of nature, okay? Again, there'll be an adjustment. Mercury is our mind, but Uranus is the collective third octave, the higher octave, the third eye of the collective, okay? So again, we're going to need to adjust our expectations, because as we come into the 7th, which is the third quarter square, right? This is where there's going to be a potential eruption. Number one, third quarter square of the sun and moon is where we have a crisis in our consciousness based on what we had illuminated at the full moon, right? We're working with that. We're letting things go that don't need to be with us anymore. We see things clearly that otherwise are just brewing under the surface. Well, it's still not really fully illuminated because of the eclipse, okay? So the Mercury is actually, the moon is moved into Virgo, as you see here, is going to be in an opposition to Neptune, right? We're going to want to be organized. Everything needs to be positioned exactly where it needs to be within Virgo. And so we're talking about emotionally, we just need to have it all meticulously planned out and exactly where it needs to be. And Mercury rules Virgo. But here's the square with the sun. There's going to be an eruption, right? An emotional eruption. We're going to blow our top like a volcano while we collectively express ourselves, wanting to express ourselves through what? A process of rebirth, okay? This is a crisis of consciousness, what do we, not so much what are we going to do, but where are we putting our conscious awareness in this moment? What is getting our attention after we've learned things from this full moon? So it's not fully, we're not fully aware of it with the eclipse. So since there was no full illumination, it's best to refer back to what? This quincunx with Mercury and Uranus the day before, okay? What kind of adjustment did we make here, right? Uranus is shifting things constantly and being like, well, I'm going to show you that you have to trust. You have to trust the natural cycles, okay? Whereas Mercury is like, well, I have all these things brewing under the surface in my mind right now. And it's like, well, that's great, but the focus needs to be over here. You can't really, there's just so much earthquake energy around this. And I'm not trying to say that will or won't happen. It's just use it as a symbolic reference or an archetype here. What kind of adjustments did we make with this quincunx? It'll give us the ability to anticipate this emotional eruption so that we can see it for the rebirth that it represents for us. Because then we go into the last quarter, and that is going to go into the dark moon. It's going to lead us to the solar eclipse, which is a whole different ball of wax. But this week, there's so much healing potential and so much transformation when it comes to who we are, who we love, who we have bonds with, all of that kind of stuff, that the potential is immense. But by the time we get to the end of this week, there will be some sort of eruption. And remember, it's transient, right? It's the moon. It moves through all of these aspects very quickly. And so even if we have an emotional eruption, it's going to pass very quickly. And it's in opposition to Neptune. So even though the moon is at a point then where there's this eruption, and then, okay, we need to emulate each other so that we can collectively get to this spiritual goal. Neptune is like, well, that's great, but the Kraken has already been released and the wave is coming, right? That is a aspect that has been set in motion when Neptune went direct. So even with this eruption, we try to kind of get it under control. It's not necessarily going to work the way we want. So we're going to have to really dive into the middle here and get on that surfboard and ride that wave into the last quarter of this cycle as we get to the solar eclipse. So that is the weekly report for Catalyst Energies, the third quarter of this lunar cycle. I hope that you found it beneficial and helpful. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, hitting that like button. All of these things get the information out through the algorithm to other people who might also find this helpful. Everything else you need is in the description box below, including contact information, the website, and social media contacts. I go live every morning on Facebook for an intuitive reading as well. And these are my offerings through Catalyst Energies. If you're interested in a reading or energy work, you can book through the website. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. And I will see you on the next video.